Hello everyone, my name is Luis Tolentino in case you missed my introduction video. And today I'm excited to talk to you about Ivan Pavlov and his theory on classical conditioning. In this guide, I will go through his contributions, their impact, and some fun facts about him. Let's dive right in. Who was Ivan Pavlov? Ivan Pavlov was a Russian physiologist, which is a biological scientist who studies how living things function, and he was born on September 14th, 1949. He originally wanted to be a priest, following in the footsteps of his religious family, but he instead became fascinated with natural sciences at a theological seminary in Russia after reading works on physiology and biology. He won a Nobel Prize in 1904, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Pavlov's big idea, classical conditioning. The exact number of times he did this is not known, but it is estimated that he conducted this experiment thousands of times throughout his life. Pavlov's big idea revolved around classical conditioning. He discovered that behaviors could be learned through association. In his famous experiment, he noticed that dogs started drooling not just at the sight of food, but also when they heard a bell associated with feeding time. This showed that a neutral stimulus, like a bell, could trigger a conditioned response, like salivation, through repeated pairings. It is important to remember that is not always natural, and through this process we can generate positive behaviors and or reactions. Key terms. Let's break it down. First up is the unconditioned stimulus, something that naturally triggers a response. In this case, it is the food causing the salivation. Second is the unconditioned response, which is the natural reaction to that stimulus. And in this case, it is the salivating. Next is the conditioned stimulus, which is a previously neutral stimulus, which is the sound of a bell here, which comes to trigger a response. Lastly, I didn't mean to click that, is the conditioned response, which is the learned reaction to the conditioned stimulus. In this case, it was a drooling at the sound of the bell. Strengths of his work. Pavlov's work has several strengths. First, it laid the foundation for behavioral psychology, helping us understand how behaviors are learned. Second, it's widely applicable, influencing areas like education, therapy, and even advertising. His experiments were methodical, making his findings reliable and replicable. Lastly, and this one may be biased, but it made science engaging. Who wouldn't love working with dogs? Weaknesses of his work. Of course, there are some criticisms. For one, his experiments were conducted on animals, raising questions about how well the findings apply to humans. Also, his methods lack consideration of emotional or cognitive factors, which are crucial in human learning. What about long-term effects? His work only focused on immediate behavior responses. And another one not on here raised ethical concerns about the animals that he conducted research on. How do social workers use it today? Today, social workers and therapists use principles of classical conditioning to help clients unlearn harmful behaviors and form healthier ones. For example, I like the example of the chancleta or flip-flop in Hispanic culture because it is a metaphor to a corrective response or behavior in any given situation. How else do they use it? Trauma recovery and behavioral therapy. For example, it helps us understand fear triggering stimulus and also helps us address it with safety and calmness instead of anxiety. Fun facts about Ivan Pavlov. Like I mentioned before, he won the Nobel Prize in 1904, but it wasn't for classical conditioning, but for his research on the digestive system, which I think is kind of cool that food ultimately led him to his calling. He worked on his research until he was 86 years old. And despite working during a difficult period in Russia, Pavlov openly criticized the Bolshevik regime, showcasing his strong moral stance. Pavlov's dogs became a cultural icon, symbolizing behavioral science for decades. So, what did we learn? Pavlov's dogs were real experts? No. Bells can make you hungry even without food? Maybe. Social workers can turn this into life changing therapy? Yes. To wrap things up, we've learned about Pavlov's discovery of classical conditioning and its components. We've explored how his work shaped behavioral psychology, its applications today, and its strengths and weaknesses. Most importantly, we've seen how learning through association remains relevant in many fields. Thank you so much for watching my super short show. Don't forget to download my cheat sheet.